Senators from Montana both mentioned the recreation funding and the accounts and the impact to Montana on trails. As you know, we were able to see a little bit of an increase in Region 10 with regards to the recreation funding because there had been that disproportionate cut into the region. But even with this, we're still hearing some concerns, some issues that despite the funding trends, there are some problems that continue to persist. One example was there's a company in the Chugach National Forest that wants to expand into paddle boarding, and they've been told that Forest Service doesn't have sufficient funds to consider an expansion. Really small example, but I think we continue to hear it across both the Tongass and the Chugach. From our folks in the state, and it gets to us back here. So I'm assuming other regions outside of Montana and Alaska are experiencing the same. So again, we recognize the great recreational values that comes out of our national forests. You hear me take up most of my time in these hearings talking about timber within the Tongass, but I also recognize, again, the great recreational values. So making sure that we're able to meet the needs and the interests of folks as they access our Forest Service lands, and how we deal with what would be considered some pretty simple permits and simple opportunity for access know that continues to be a concern for us.
Well, Senator, with any one of those requests by themselves, yeah, they would look fairly simple, and why can't we just take that application, process it, and be able to grant the permit? The problem, we have so few people anymore from what we've been able to do in the past, and yes, we've been able to hold the recreation budget basically flat there and in Alaska, but even with a flat budget over the last couple years, we still haven't recovered from the significant reduction. I think it was back in FY12 with our recreation funding, and so we're dealing with that. We are working to improve our processes, just like we have when it comes to our timber sales, where we reduced our costs by over 39%. Our unit costs are lower today than they've ever been, but we're looking at trying to do the same thing in recreation, and so part of it is to look at our processes so that we can make it easier for groups to be able to access their national forests and grasslands. And so to look at what we need to do with our policies so that, especially for those non-commercial groups, to make it very easy for those, which would then free up more time for us to be able to look at the commercial opportunities and have our staff, our limited staff, actually spend more time on those efforts than what we do with more of these non-commercial activities that we get tremendous interest in that. So it's one of the things we are working on, and I would hope when I come back here next year that when you ask me that question, I'll have a better answer about how we've been able to improve our policies to make sure we're using our staff at the best place we really need them to work, because often it's the commercial activities that take up a little more time to process the permit versus some of these non-commercial activities. So I'm optimistic that we will improve our processes when it comes to permit processing, just like we have done when it comes to our timber sale program.